a corrupt global establishment that's raiding our country and surrendering the sovereignty of our nation. This criminal government cartel doesn't recognize borders, but believes in global governance.
You may have been wondering yourself, is Donald Trump really an Illuminati puppet like Bush and Obama? I have been following fake news such as CNN and BBC daily in order to get a good idea on where Trump stands in the global New World Order conspiracy. As of now, it does not look like Trump is advancing the Illuminati agenda in the Middle East, the same agenda that Bush and Obama have been working on for 15 years, an agenda that is currently top priority. I will now explain how Trump is going to prove to the world and all the conspiracy deniers that the Illuminati run the US government. Simply, there's only two possible scenarios. Scenario number 1. Trump is not an Illuminati puppet, which means Illuminati still run the CIA, FBI, and the media, and thus these powerful forces will not allow Trump to change anything that the Illuminati wants to remain as the way it is. There can only be 3 outcomes for scenario number 1: contain him, or impeach him, or kill him. Scenario number 2. Trump is an Illuminati puppet and will continue what Bush and Obama started in the Middle East, namely use jihadists to destroy or topple the existing state so that the Illuminati can take control of the country through a puppet regime which will allow them to build pipelines through the country as well as control the oil production in that country.
Sitting senator who also happens to be running for president suggests that I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.
That way they can collapse the Russian economy, and once that happens, regime change by using a puppet will become much easier. They finished off Iraq, failed to do it in Syria because Russia started fighting back the jihadists.
وجندا وما كان الله ليضيع دعواتكم. الله أكبر. الله النظام ينتقم، يقصف قصف عشواء، ولكن ما تغني عنه ذخيرته وما يغني عنه قصفه. من كان معه الله فلن يضيعه الله.
You make me laugh.
If Trump is his own boss, and does not answer to the same controllers that manage Bush and Obama, it will quickly become clear. Because if the Illuminati control the CIA, FBI, the American mainstream media and the high courts, and if President Trump tries to change anything that goes against their domestic or even foreign policy, they will find a way to shut it down.
Well, here's a tweet just in this morning, quote, "The opinion of this so-called judge." Hey, can I stop right there? Hold on, just freeze the image. So-called judge? It's a federal judge appointed by President George W. Bush. I try and show the office of the president respect.
In this sense, it will show that presidents do not hold the power in America. The American mainstream media has, for example, pushed the narrative of both the Bush and Obama regime for 15 years straight. For George Bush, the media pushed the pro-Iraq invasion propaganda, not to mention help cover up that 9/11 was done by the Bush regime.
Can you actually imagine that our government was capable of successfully pulling off 9/11? Actually, more Americans think that than think that Congress is doing a good job. I'm not kidding.
Iraqi opposition has faded in the face of American power.
شو رايك يا حد يضربوا المدنيين يعني؟ مدنيين كله هذا بيت عمنا كله مدنيين كله عسكريين كله مدنيين يضربون.
They helped spread the fake evidence that linked Saddam to Al-Qaeda.
Oh, the reason I keep insisting that there was a relationship between Iraq and Saddam and Al-Qaeda, because there was a relationship between Iraq and Al-Qaeda.
And when that failed to justify an invasion of Iraq, The Bush regime made up more fake evidence that Saddam was harboring weapons of mass destruction and that he was planning to use them on other countries.
The United States knows that Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. Any country on the face of the earth with an active intelligence program knows that Iraq has weapons of mass destruction.
There is no doubt that Saddam Hussein now has weapons of mass destruction.
Saddam Hussein aids and protects terrorists, including members of Al-Qaeda.
Neither CNN nor BBC were critical of any of the unconstitutional laws that Bush passed, let alone went against them. In contrast, no matter what Trump says or does, even before the election, CNN was pro-Hillary and anti-Trump. Even after Trump won, the anti-Trump campaign was clear as day for anyone who read between the lines. CNN and BBC and the other major American propaganda machines have spun everything Trump says or does or even proposed in order to create negative headlines against him. I watched CNN daily for the past 6 months, and it's extremely clear that they cannot handle that crooked Hillary lost the election. For the first time in 15 years, the American media and entertainment industry is against a president. Which tells me one thing: Illuminati decided to not rig an election this time, and lost.
Donald Trump, now don't get me wrong. He's a lot of fun. And there's a little bit of me that when, that thinks, fuck it, let's do it. Let's do it and see how fucking crazy shit can get.
For example, when Bush proposed to drop 100 bombs over Baghdad in 2003, which would kill thousands of civilians and thus create thousands of refugees from those strikes alone, CNN suddenly had no opinion about it. They just reported Pentagon sources to paint a false image of Iraq being liberated. The Bush regime continued to massacre over 1 million Iraqi civilians since the invasion of 2003, but CNN and BBC remained neutral about it, while helping cover up war crimes such as the collateral murder video that WikiLeaks released, which shows the American military murdering a Reuters reporter and his friends, and then later shoot at a family in a car, who arrived to bring the wounded to a hospital.
Come on. Clear.
Bush and Obama tag-teamed to create the wars and well-funded terrorist groups we see in the Middle East today, mainly ISIS. So it came as no surprise that the American media propaganda pushed the narrative of Obama too.
In 2012, I became the first reporter to question President Obama directly about the U.S. arming a group that had members of Al-Qaeda. 1 year later, in 2013, the CIA began delivering weapons to those Syrian rebels. The shipments began streaming into the country over the past 2 weeks, along with separate deliveries by the State Department of vehicles and other gear. A flow of material that marks a major escalation of the U.S. role in Syria's civil war. That was the Washington Post in 2013. But things only got worse because while the weapons were flowing in, well, so were jihadists. Of the estimated 100,000 insurgent fighters were linked to Al-Qaeda. Another 30 to 35,000 belonged to powerful factions that were fighting for an Islamic State within a larger Middle East caliphate. 70 to 75% of forces against Assad in 2013 were jihadists. But that didn't stop the U.S. from sending funding and sending weapons. 3,000 of the few remaining FSA fighters, they defected from the organization. They proclaimed their allegiance to ISIS.
مع كل من يريد أن يحكم شرع الله. نحن لا نريد أن نحكم. نحن مع كل من يريد أن يحكم شرع الله. ولو كان من الجبهة الإسلامية من غير الجبهة الإسلامية، المهم أن يقيم شرع الله في هذه البلاد التي حرمت من شرع الله أكثر من 200 سنة صار لها.
CNN and BBC did everything they could to push the Obama regime narrative that the Syrian rebels are fighting for democracy in Syria and that sending them billions of dollars is justified, even though all the rebel leaders have admitted that they are fighting to establish Sharia law in Syria, which is what ISIS fight for. And here is exactly how you can prove that they are covering up actions of the rebels. Jihadi rebels have been shelling non-Sunni areas of Aleppo since 2014, destroying entire towns and killing thousands of civilians.
حلب هي التجارة هي الصناعة في سوريا. اللي يملك حلب يملك سوريا.
Biz Shom diyorlarida turibmiz. Jihod diyorlarida. Inshaalloh mana Suriyani oz-ozdan fath qilishni boshladik. Biiznillah inshaalloh. O'zbekiston, Qirg'iziston, Tojikiston diyorlariga inshaalloh yaqinda kirib boramiz biiznillah. Sizlar murtatlar inshaalloh bitta ariqlarda qon oqadi inshaalloh. Kofirlarni so'yamiz inshaalloh.
But none of the American mainstream media pick up on those events, because they know that those stories would go against the Obama regime's narrative that the rebels are peaceful freedom fighters who need Western support to defend themselves from the government.
I would encourage you to go flip on CNN today and look for yourself at the imagery that's coming out of Aleppo by a reputable news organization.
Yes, mainstream American media has painted quite a picture of Aleppo.
And I love the fact that Russia is hitting ISIS. And as far as I'm concerned, they've got to continue to hit ISIS.
But you know what Russia is doing in Syria? Russia is hitting the groups that we're backing.
Sure.
Russia is hitting
the
groups that we're backing.
Sure. And why are we backing the group? We don't even know who those people are. I speak to generals. They're saying we're giving billions of dollars of equipment to people we have no... Here we go again. We're giving all of this money and all of this equipment to people we have no idea who they are.
If Russia and the United States got along well and went after ISIS, that would be good. Putin, from everything I see, has no respect for this person.
Well, that's because he'd rather have a puppet as president of the United States.
No puppet.
And it's pretty clear.
You're the puppet.
It's pretty clear.
As soon as Trump announced that he was against the arming and funding of rebels, the anti-Trump media started painting Trump as a Russia puppet. Even though President Bush has been working together more with Russia regarding anti-terror intelligence than Trump. You see, the USA shadow government hates that ISIS, which is their creation, is being weakened, but they cannot announce that openly, so they instead use propaganda against anyone who fights ISIS, namely Russia and Syria.
You said it repeatedly. President Obama is the founder of ISIS. He's the founder. He founded ISIS. Do you think it's appropriate to call the sitting president of the United States the founder of a terrorist organization that wants to kill Americans?
He was the founder of ISIS, absolutely. He was the founder, absolutely the founder. In fact, he gets in sports they have awards. He gets the most valuable player award, him and Hillary.
This brings us to scenario number 2. If Trump is indeed an Illuminati puppet like Bush and Obama, or if he sells out, or gives in to threats by the CIA and FBI, or if he becomes managed by those intelligence agencies, he will continue exactly what Bush and Obama initiated, which is an ongoing attempt to regime change stable Middle Eastern governments in order to build up terrorist states, which makes it much easier to justify an invasion in order to take over the countries one by one through a puppet regime which will allow them to control who the country's oil is being sold to. Obviously, oil is not the endgame, it's just a step they need to take in order to move on with their attempt to collapse the world economy, which is only another step in a bigger plan. No matter if Trump is an Illuminati puppet or not, the Illuminati still hold the power, and they will do whatever they want in Syria, regardless what Trump thinks. After all, it is the CIA that operates in Syria, not Trump. It is 100% certain, and I bet the credibility of this channel, that Illuminati will never stop helping ISIS and jihadists in Syria until Syria is destroyed. They know that once the government collapses, that the only force motivated enough to take over are the pro-Sharia ISIS supporters.
Let's say you get rid of Assad or you knock out that government, who's going to take over? The people that were backing, and then you're going to have, like, Libya, right?
After all, the Sunnis are the biggest sect in Syria, which is why true democracy in Syria would result in Sharia law if most of the Sunnis voted in a pro-Sharia leader, which would turn Syria into a terrorist state where all minorities would be exterminated. If Trump suddenly changes his mind about the war in Syria and continues what Bush and Obama started, that will make it clear that he sold out, or was a puppet all along. His actions, or inactions, will prove to the world that America is run by a shadow government, a government that has at the very least controlled both the previous Republican and Democrat president for 16 years straight. Which also means that they run the CIA and FBI as well, since these intelligence agencies played to the same tune for 16 years straight. Keep watching fake news like CNN Daily, and you will notice that they will never stop pushing their anti-Russian and anti-Syria agenda until what this video predicted comes to pass.
We have to get rid of ISIS. We have no choice. Radical Islamic terrorism, and I said it yesterday, has to be eradicated.